pleasure of interviewing Jordan Boesch. He's the founder and CEO of Seven Shifts, a labor and compliance management platform built to help restaurants schedule, evaluate, and communicate with their staff. Seven Shift's story began when Jordan thought of creating a simple tool to help his dad manage the work schedule at his Quiznos franchises. It has since evolved into a leading global restaurant management platform. Bosch has led Seven Shifts into the doors of over 10,000 restaurants with a mission to simplify compliance and labor operations for restaurants.
Hello. How's it going?
Hello.
How are you doing?
Awesome. I'm doing well. How are you?
What's it, lunchtime or something? Busy day today?
It's been a busy day for sure. I mean, normally I allocate a little bit of time for myself to eat, but I didn't do my day properly today, so I'm trying to squeeze things in.
Yeah, what's coming up for you guys?
Like from a product perspective?
Just overall, like what are you guys working on, or I don't know what's coming up. What's taking a lot of your time or attention right now?
We're hiring a VP of People and Culture right now. There's a lot of product stuff rolling out. Talking with investors. Series B is coming in Q2, so.
Fun.
Yeah, I can't complain. Got a great team to try and conquer some really exciting goals with.
Yeah, what's the size of you guys' team right now?
We're 150 some people.
Not too bad. You've grown a bunch, and I didn't realize you guys are open and started in 2014. It's a really short. I mean, we started our first restaurant in 2014.
Yeah.
It's a really short amount of time to go from zero to that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it's been a super fun journey, but so I have a bit of background, but you guys use our product then at the restaurant?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, we've used it for over a year.
Yeah,
we used to have hot schedules prior to you guys.
Gotcha.
And then we shift to Seven Shifts. So yeah, we were you guys' customers we have 2 restaurants. We're in San Antonio, Texas.
Well, thank you for being customers.
Sure, yeah.
We're
very happy with the product. So, and I recommended to anybody who asked me about anything about kind of scheduling and stuff. It's very user-friendly, particularly because, in the restaurant industry, working with a lot of people who are not necessarily tech savvy, which is a challenge when you have a tech company, you're trying to serve restaurants, you need to be very mindful of that.
Totally.
A lot of teenagers, you can't be too complicated.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially when, folks are just adopting a back office technology, maybe for the first time. Maybe they've got a few things, but nevertheless, it's something new. And it's a change, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we love you guys' product. So
thank you. And how do you pronounce your name?
Sure. It's Hengum.
Hengum?
Yeah.
Hengum. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great to meet you.
Absolutely. And nice meeting you. So we own a couple pizzerias actually in San Antonio. And we just went through Super Bowl and, we got a lot of catering. We're going to Valentine's. So February is a fun time for restaurants. So.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. It's good for us. Good for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It's, as long as restaurants are busy, hopefully everybody's happy. So.
We're all benefiting. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So is that okay if we start? I'm okay you eating. I don't mind. I mean,
I'll pause my eating when we start. Just so people don't hear me.
I mean, you know what I mean? We're all people. We all eat. We all are busy. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't mind. So it's your call. But if that's okay, we can start. I want to respect your time. So I'm not taking too much of your time so we can finish this so you can get back to your fun meetings that are awaiting you.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay, so
happy to jump in.
Sure. So I want to give you kind of brief how this will go. In the podcast, I will read through the bio that the team provided. Your team provided a bio about Seven Shifts and about you. So I'll read that there, so you don't need to worry about it. I'd like to just dive in, talk about the stuff. At the end, also, we want to talk about a little bit about Seven Shifts. Throughout the interview, I'm going to mention Seven Shifts multiple times, and you're welcome to do that. At the end, I'm going to probably ask you just share a little bit about Seven Shifts, where people can learn more from the platform and things like that. And so that's kind of how we end it. And then when I end it, we don't need to end this call. I edit this whole thing, so you don't need to worry about it. Sounds good?
Mm-hmm. Sounds amazing. Let's
okay.
Do it.
And we can go wherever you want to take it. So sounds good?
Rocking.
All right, Jordan, I am super excited to be chatting with you today. You're the CEO of Seven Shifts, and you guys do scheduling and compliance, big words. Ultimately, you handle a lot of the scheduling for restaurants. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so I'm very excited chatting with you because I think you have access to data that observing a lot of restaurants, thousands of restaurants, because I think a lot of us in the restaurant business, we have this view of our own restaurant, maybe our own town, our own city, and you guys have a lot of data and statistics that can kind of see the trends of where things are going. And I wanted to first start off with a point you made in a recent article on LinkedIn where you were talking about how in the hospitality industry, we have a turnover of 73%, kind of average of what it is right now, which kind of translates into 1 out of every 4 employees don't make it. I mean, actually 1 out of every 4 will last a full calendar year working for the restaurant, and which is really hard, particularly a lot of us restaurant owners that have to train our people. A lot of fast foods don't need as much training. That's a huge issue. I wanted to start off with that. What are your thoughts when you're looking at that data? Where do you think that's kind of a steady trend of the turnover rate? Do you see it going up or down, or where's that going?
Yeah, so I think it varies by the restaurant, and it varies by maybe segments of restaurant, maybe QSR, full service. But we see anything from turnover rates, whether they're 50%, we've seen 130% and more. So there's kind of like, it's all over the place. But one thing that's really interesting to me is that when you turn over an employee, the cost of that, and there's a lot of information out there now of how much it's actually costing you to like turn over an employee, and it's between, like, you know, some articles say it's a couple grand, some say it's 10 grand, you know, and like, you know, we're kind of probably somewhere in the middle, maybe it's 5. But if you were to ask a restaurant operator, if you lost $5,000 in produce, like in meat, would you care? You know, most of them would say, oh my God, I'd be checking cameras and like, you know, where did that ham go? Not saying you pay $5,000 for ham in one go, but maybe you do. But the whole idea is,
You'd be surprised. Yeah.
you know, you're kind of like, well, there's this notion of just hitting the resume stack. Let's just get another resume. Let's go, and churn a bit of churn and burn. Now there's obviously a segment that, you know, it's a part-time thing and they're in school, and that's an understandable thing. But if the data that we're seeing is true around the core of people wanting to, you know, progress and have a career in restaurants, you know, mostly on the chef side, you gotta kind of think a little bit long term about, like, how are we setting up our operations to maybe foster growth and these other things that individual might be interested in, and try and, you know, retain them longer. So I think that, and I have this belief out of all, you know, most businesses, if not all businesses, that I think the problem a lot of the restaurants face is more in the front of the stack, which is the hiring phase, and getting the right hires in the door, and how critical that is, and making sure there's core value alignment, cultural fit, and and most restaurants don't have a process for this. But the difference between having the right person in the door that you can train and having the wrong person in the door, like, training can't fix the wrong person. So I think the problem is more kind of like the front of the funnel. That if you address that, you can start having different things in place to help retain the staff a little bit better.
Yeah, I totally understand. And I also understand, as a restaurant owner, you're really desperate for employees, especially, hopefully sales is good. You are desperate for staff, because that affects your service, and, you know, you're exhausted. Maybe you're working 100 hours. Then out of desperation, you make some choices that are, you use the word, you know, having a long-term vision for who you're hiring versus having that short-term view. You just want the problem fixed real quick, instead of thinking how you're going to solve in fulfilling a position long-term. But that is a challenge we face in the restaurant. I personally think that it is a metric that's difficult to look at, because you're always going to have turnover, because a lot of people are not here in the restaurant long term, because they're college students, you know, or whatever. This is not long term. They're not envisioning their thing to be here. So it's not necessarily the metric to look and be like, oh, am I a successful manager? Am I a good leader in my restaurant? If you have high turnover, it's part of, especially if, I mean, you know what I mean? It's a factor that is always going to be there a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
I think to a certain degree, I just think like it can't be an excuse to try and improve your own processes internally, right? It's just saying it's, it's part of the industry, it's how it's always going to be. And like to an extent, there's a lot of that's true, but I think that there's just more that we can do as it relates to trying to get the right people in the door and create a good experience for them to the point
Mhm.
where maybe they refer other great people. Maybe they want to come back when they need some shifts and some work, even if they've moved on to another job. So, and I also think like because it employs the restaurant industry employs the highest number of teenagers out of any industry in North
Mhm.
America. Like this is the first time job for a lot of these folks. So what type of environment do you want to create that is going to differentiate from other restaurant environments where you can almost give them some tools and some advice and help them set them up for success longer term, whether they're at your restaurant longer term or not. Do you want to have the reputation of, you know, going that extra mile for some of the staff members that are there, and kind of build a gravitational pull
Mhm.
through that. And I think that we're just seeing more of that of folks that are like trying to do something different. If you make, for an example, if you make it past 3 months with us, then
Mhm.
maybe we're going to give you an opportunity to get do some training in this area and with this chef and a little bit more of a hands-on type of reward system, and other people see that and they want to be a part of it. So I do agree that there's an element of that that's just kind of industry, but I also think that I think some people just maybe take it to the extreme where it's like it's just part of the industry and we can't do anything. I think I'm even looking at Taco Bell, right? Taco Bell, I don't know
Mhm.
if you read that about, they're doing a test where they're
Yeah.
paying managers 100K. And if you really look at like, if you break down the math around turnover for them, if a manager is able to prevent, say, like 3 people from turning over in a year, they basically break even. um, if you're if you're thinking through that lens. So I think that some of these larger operators that are operating at a bigger scale, that are kind of looking at spreadsheets and really analyzing costs at more of a detailed level than others are, kind of get it, and are trying to figure out how to prolong the life of a manager, and making the restaurant industry maybe feel a little bit more like a longer term career path, which is
Mhm.
interesting, I think.
That's definitely interesting. I wanted to shift a little bit talking about technology and particularly with employee engagement, which, as well as you know, we hear that term a lot, employee engagement, as a way of, again, as people are more engaged with the company they're working for, more aligned with the mission and the vision of the company, they're more likely to stick around and stay with the company despite, again, the pay isn't great or whatever, if they enjoy working there. What do you see as the role of technology? And I know that you guys with Seven Chefs, you tried to create that engaged dashboard. Where you taking that, and how can you give some insights to a restaurant owner assessing where a employee is and their engagement?
Yes, we think it's pretty important, and there's some really cool tech out there that's helping foster some engagement, quote unquote, stats. And I think largely when people hear the word engagement, they're like, oh, this sounds like a black box. This sounds like
Yeah, it's a
really
vague
touchy
term.
feely,
Yeah.
and they're like, how do I quantify engagement? Like, and I think that that's a fair question. For us, when we think about engagement, we think of, yeah, how can we prolong the life of an employee? How can we help them be more productive, more
Hmm.
performant within the restaurant? And the way we think about it is through a qualitative lens. So, how are you feeling after your shift? Maybe rank it, write some comments. And then um, from a quantitative perspective, was this person always punching in on time? Were they working all their shifts? Were they picking up shifts for others? Communicating through the mobile apps? And all of a sudden, are they not doing that anymore? Um, are they dropping all their shifts? Are they not picking up as much as they used to? Are they communicating less? Are they showing up late? And are they not showing up at all? And there's some, like, at least what we're finding is there are some predictors as it relates to a staff member that might have one foot out the door. So if we can, we either can do two things with that. We can either try and prevent that staff member from leaving, or we can help give you a heads up so you're not in a total bind when it comes time to find a replacement. And so that's kind of the way we've been looking at it. And by in the 7 Shifts Engaged product, to try and surface some those that are engaged, and then those that are maybe becoming disengaged. And really the goal is, can we help spark a meaningful discussion with the manager and that employee around some of those things that may have changed since they started. A manager might feel like this person's like kind of late. I feel like they're showing up late more. But until you dive into maybe the 7 Shifts dashboard and engage, you're like, oh my God, yeah, like I'm seeing that they're like late half the time, and it's only been happening in the past month. So I was right. You know what? I'm gonna have just a conversation with Nicole or Justin or someone about this. So it's being a little bit more proactive, and trying to teach managers that are newer managers in restaurants to have real conversations, use data as a backbone, but be human. Like, I mean, this is a very hospitality, human-driven industry. So let's not mask it with technology. Let's kind of use that as a tool to augment how we manage.
I think that's, the factors you said, a team member who shows up later, swaps their shift and this and this and that. I think as managers in a restaurant, you kind of get that feeling, but I think having that backup with the technology and the data, I think it's incredibly powerful. We sadly I don't think we use that feature, our managers, as much. So I'm definitely going to talk more about that. Another thing I want to talk to you about is logging things, and particularly in general in restaurants. I think the power of and the importance of daily documentation, why it matters. I mean, would you kind of, what are you seeing out there when it comes to logbook, and again, the importance of daily documentation of different things that goes on into a restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, we have something that we refer to as our manager logbook, as and what we've seen in terms of folks that document things for other managers is really at the end of the day, whether it's sales data, labor data, guest counts, customer complaints, staff members that have had, talking to or strikes against them for whatever reason as it relates to performance. So yeah, I mean, those are the common things that we see as it relates to folks using and leveraging the logbook. But I think it's an important element to align managers, right? If you're, and I mean, it's still used, but like that red, like manager logbook, that physical one that you actually see some restaurants still have, is to try and really pass the torch and give as much information to the next manager who may be coming on for the night shift, as give them context to what happened during the day. So I think that the concept of a logbook is really, really important, and I don't think it's going away. But in terms of the things that we're seeing documented are things like that. How was the flow? How was the traffic? And even if things are broken, if there are things that aren't working properly, like the fridge or a dishwasher, at least that it's been reported. That someone's on it, versus everyone just kind of passing the buck and being like, just talking about it. Oh, it's broken. Someone will fix it, right? Like, who's taking action on it, and has it got resolved? So I think that the manager logbook is a really critical function, but certainly everyone uses it a bit differently.
Yeah, we use it heavily with our managers. We make sure that every single day there's like log at the end of the morning shift, at the end of evening shift, also trainings that were provided. I think a lot of them, as what you said, alignment, and also awareness. If questions that you can customize it as you want, a manager needs to kind of go around, and it brings a level of awareness to the different issues in the restaurant. I strongly recommend also, at some point as a company, you're going to get, I don't know, unemployment claim or something like that. And so are heavy on documentation, so we can just go in there and plug it in, and we can see all the trainings that were provided, or if somebody made mistakes or any documentation regarding team members, we all put them heavily in there so we can again have backup documentation in case it happens. I mean, sooner or later it happens, I'm guessing, to all restaurants, sadly. So we really like that feature, and I hope that all restaurant owners are documenting things. So thank you so much, Jordan. I really enjoyed our convo. I wanted to just kind of tell us a little bit about 7 Shifts. What was your vision? I know you started kind of started this company in 2014, as I mentioned in the bio as well. Again, seeing your father had a Quiznos franchise, it seems. So what was your vision with the company, and were you wanting to be different in comparison to other scheduling platforms that are out there serving restaurants?
Yeah, so we're as you kind of mentioned, that it was the idea for Seven Shifts was really born out of my dad having some pains around managing the schedule and labor when I was working
Mhm.
for him at some Quiznos locations. And really initially it was just to solve a problem around scheduling. And that was where it started. Now, as we've grown the business and we've gotten into more like the competitive space, and we certainly have our contenders, but the way we've been thinking about the long term of Seven Shifts is, scheduling and labor management, it will always be our core, and that's really
Mhm.
our foot in the door to kind of helping, um, facilitate the manager employee relationship, if you will. And so when we think of long term, we really want to own the employee life cycle in restaurants. And what we mean by that is everything from the moment someone's hired in a restaurant, they're trained, they're scheduled using Seven Shifts, obviously, they're paid using a payroll company after they work their shifts, and then they're retained or engaged until they ultimately leave or are terminated. So those 5 buckets around the employee life cycle, we've got a few more products to build out, obviously, to complete the life cycle. But we think the long-term gains of providing operators with great restaurant, um, operational tools is going to be, a winning solution. I think that if we can make it easy, self-serve, automated, where we're learning over time, behaviors and labor targets and weather and seasonality trends
Mhm.
of what works and at what times, can we ultimately build something that managers don't have to create schedules anymore? And I know that's really crazy to think about, but if there's enough that we can learn from and enough that we can take into account around, certain people working together and certain people can't be scheduled
Mhm.
to work together because of X, Y, and Z, and learn from the manager's behaviors over time, can we start suggesting great schedules that make the manager feel confident, hit their labor target, and keep staff happy? I think like there's some excitement around how we're going to be doing that and how we've started to, but ultimately we want to give managers the simplest, easiest to use operational tool set that they can grow with, so they can get it on something really simple and end up opening and leveraging all these other components that can complete what we deem is kind of the employee life cycle in restaurants.
That's wonderful what you just mentioned. I think a lot of, in the beginning, our managers used to spend a lot of time um, when it comes to doing the schedule. They would spend, I don't know, 5 hours a week trying to create the schedule. And I think what you were saying with the projections, and I'm guessing you're talking about incorporating some artificial intelligence, gathering data, and you're kind of looking at I know you guys obviously integrate with different POS systems and stuff like
Mhm.
that. That's kind of what you mean, like kind of artificial intelligence, integrating it into that. Is that what you're saying, more or less?
Um, I would, I mean, I would probably almost think of more of as machine learning, where we're we have to marry the behaviors of managers today because it's a psychological shift to say, hey, we're just going to build the schedule for you. Like that's not a
Yeah.
realistic,
Well, they would
next
have to
step for
review
us.
it and
It's
they make adjustments that
right.
based on
E-
different things as well. But
Exactly. Weather, seasonality, is there a game day that day? Or is there a hockey game? Like there are many factors that go into framing how we think about building an optimal schedule and the right people at the right times. And so ultimately, yeah, learning about the behaviors of something that managers typically do, mixing with the insights we get, and
mhm.
seeing what changes and what things managers are changing, what they're not changing, and ultimately produce something that's close to what they've been already doing, just maybe slightly augmented to hit their target, and starting to make suggestions around them to get the most out of their staff while maintaining their labor thresholds and maintaining customer service, because you don't want to be so
Yep.
understaffed that you can't
Oh
maintain
yeah.
great customer service.
Hmm.
That'll kill you. So I think it's a big challenge for us, but it's an exciting undertaking. I think we've got a great team. We're in a great spot to do it. And I mean, this industry is it's a ton of fun, I have to admit. I love working
That's for
with
sure.
with restaurant owners.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. I do appreciate your time and our conversation. Again, these are just talks to have, and I think these topics are important for restaurant owners continuing to think and develop, and each operations is different. So we're always looking and improving. So I appreciate your time and things you shared. And if anybody wants to check out you guys' website, it's just 7shifts.com. Is that correct?
Yep. www.7shifts.com. The number 7 and then shifts, like shift work, just plural. So yeah, check us out.
Yeah, wonderful. I wanted to simply say as well, like now I think it takes our managers about 1 hour to do the schedule for the following week. So that
How long did it take them before?
it used to take like 5 hours. So again, if you counted, how much you pay your manager, if it's going to take them that many hours. I see also a lot of restaurateurs use spreadsheets. I don't know, but again, they're not counting how many hours it takes a manager to do that. Like back in the day, and then so when somebody wants to come in and put an offer request, those people who do spreadsheets, which is still a lot of restaurants actually, they do like if somebody wants to do their offer request or change availability, not having an app, I really don't know how people do that. We usually just send people directly. We don't hog our manager do these things, so the manager can do what they need to do. So all of the employees are in charge of putting things up on the app, whether their availability changes. If it's not on the app, it doesn't exist. So that's kind of is our motto. Verbally, it doesn't count. They need to update their whatever thing it is. Everything must happen on the app. But anyways, we're overall very happy with 7 shifts. So, again, yeah, that saves a lot of our managers' time. So we like that, obviously.
Awesome. Well, I might follow up with Chris to have him, reach out and maybe just get some sort of testimonial. Would love to feature you guys on the blog or some, like maybe a case study or something that I love hearing that. And I think that if we can promote you guys and feature your restaurant and talk a little bit about the savings that you guys kind of went through, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. You can have them contact me and we go from there.
Awesome.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
All right. You have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.